And that's it. So what are your thoughts?
Hey, Rick, this is Tiffany, one of your co-hosts. And as a chemistry teacher, I think this is awesome with respect to like particles and waves and things like that, where for me personally, I think I don't necessarily, I know what you're saying when you can get yourself in danger with respect to that. But to me, I think the benefits outweigh the cost by far. I think that was great. And it really, the way that you actually put those like red arrows there, really it's different than just singing the song. Like it actually makes a really good connection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I talked about last year. Yeah, that's my quick and easy approach. You know, a lot of the things you could have done with, you know, fancy visuals or anything like that to kind of make side points. I just do with this because I'm very lazy.
No, actually, I think in many ways it actually got the point across even more so than if you were going to see an image that was associated with that. So it really hit like it actually made a pretty good connection in my brain about a subject I didn't know that much about. We have a couple questions here. One is from Walter. Can folks think of examples other than evolution chart where anthropomorphism or teleology leads to important errors? And then Gary says, I think anthropomorphism can serve as a purpose for example, I sing a song about the biology of the red fox from the first person perspective. So I think that's kind of an interesting way to address the question before it. And then you have one thing from Larry here. He says, and does this relate at all to writing from the point of view of someone with a misconception?
Mm-hmm.
So I think those are kind of interesting takes on the whole topic.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, like I said, I write enormous numbers of songs that are very high in anthropomorphism. I mean, I think much more so than most people. So I'm by no means against it. I mostly was kind of writing this and like, man, I hope people think it's okay, right? But I think that there's such strong advantages. And as Monty said, you know, I think songs want anthropomorphism, right? The way we associate with songs is in a way that has to do with narrative and anthropomorphism in a way that, you know, is an advantage of songs, right? That emotional connection that songs produce is augmented by anthropomorphism.
Yeah, definitely. And right now we have the time, if anyone's interested, if you have a question either for Rick or either for Monty or any question at all that we'll attempt to answer for you, or Greg.
Oh, wait, so I can add, so let's see, Walter asked a question, can folks think of examples other than the evolution chart where anthropomorphism or teleology leads to important errors? And I can think of a few. I mean, one of the most obvious is, I mean, so evolution is full of these things, right? So in evolution, people often think that it's true that bacteria evolve resistance to antibiotics because they sort of, it's good for them, right? And that's a teleological sort of error, right? That's not the reason that it happens. And that error sounds like, I mean, that sounds like I'm parsing finely, right? But when you're really trying to think carefully about evolution, it can be very misleading because evolution is a result of all these processes that don't have anything to do with what organisms need. And so there's a lot of issues relating to evolution.
Can I add to that quickly, Rick?
Yeah, please.
I think another case where I see this is when we're talking about molecules diffusing. You know, students sort of know that the oxygen is supposed to diffuse from the blood into the muscle cell and so forth, and the carbon dioxide is supposed to diffuse in the opposite direction. And so they think that the molecules are somehow, you know, willing themselves to the proper location. So I think if we aren't careful about this, there is a really fundamental misunderstanding about how molecules move from one place to another. It's not this directed, yeah, the muscle cell needs the oxygen, so the oxygen is going to go there. it's all about, you know, stochastic movements and gradients. And so if they anthropize, then they are really misled about how diffusion works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I 100% agree. And the thing is, anthropomorphism is like a shortcut that makes students think they understand stuff when they actually don't, and that can be extra dangerous. You know, in many cases, in some cases, maybe worse than not understanding it at all. Yes, I've read The Spandrels of San Marcos, absolutely. So yes, I mean that's the sort of concern that exists. Basically the idea is that adaptations, things that we see in organisms may not be adaptations. They may not be present for the reasons we think they are if we think strictly about everything being adaptive, right? Everything helping out the organism and having and that being its purpose, its sole purpose.
I like Monty's comment that says you could anthropomorphize the oxygen molecules as dancers in a club. That actually sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I spent a lot of time on that concept. I don't have a song about it, but I have like a big picture of the One Direction band with like an X over them when I talk about diffusion.
Yeah, in my mind, I'm actually visualizing like in my own content, if, you know, like a sodium atom goes to a party and there's a water molecule, like, and they get into a Jello fight, banging heads and things like that right now. So definitely leads to a very good entertainment aspect of the content.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So Jeff says also, or politicians. Yes, Jeff, I would agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
So we are sort of in a time slot that there's question and answers for anything that has to do with the craft of songwriting. So if there's any questions, oh, we have one here from Walter. Do you see it? Can Monty do a song that shows the most sophisticated kind of prosody where the melody really reflects the lyrics?
Is his mic on right now?
I don't know. We'll probably, I don't think it is, but we might have to get that. Bob, are you able to do that? It might just take a minute. It's on Bob's end. So Monty, if you can hear us, we have a request for you.
I hear you. Can you hear me?
We can.
Oh, well, okay. So it put me on the spot there a little bit to try to think of one that's science related, but I have I mean, here's a really simple example of the most sophisticated. Ow. Okay, I just hurt my arm. But I do a song with kids called Pop Up, Sit Down, and it's really active. I have them, when I say pop up, you stand up. When I say sit down, you sit down. And so it's pop up, sit down. You know, so it goes up when I say pop up, and it goes down when I say sit down. I mean, that's just a simple example, but gosh, where the melody really reflects the lyrics. I mean, it's so pervasive. Like just pick any great song, pick any Beatles song, and you'll start to find examples of that. Like love me do, you know I love you, I'll always be true. So please love me do. So that please is held out really long, because he's pleading, right? And that's how you plead. You're like, please love me too, right? So the way the melody is structured, it really reflects the meaning of the words. And there's a million ways you can do that. And I wish I could think off the top of my head a really good science song that does that, but maybe somebody can.
We have a request for Greg's amino acid jazz song from Larry.
Hey.
I don't think that was a request. I think he was just referring to it as an example.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting to think about the different properties of melody that might correspond to content. So clearly, going up or down in the melody can relate to, you know, a biological or physical quantity going up or down. I do that sometimes. Monty was talking about drawing out a word as pleading. Another thing, you know, you can get really subtle. You can have a melody sort of ranging all over the place, representing a wide, you know, a bunch of wild swings in some parameter, or a melody kind of just varying between 2 or 3 notes to represent a more tightly regulated parameter. I've written a couple of songs like that. The problem is that musically they aren't very compelling. Like, I had a song about the range of motion of the shoulder joint versus the range of motion of the knee joint. And, you know, the shoulder melody wanders all over the place because the shoulder is such a loose joint, and the knee joint melody is like really constrained. So it's clever, you know, but it's not a good song. But I think it was a nice attempt at least.
Yeah, and Ava mentions in the song Hallelujah, the minor fall and the major lift. So I think that's actually a really good analogy of that particular concept.
Mm-hmm.
So that's about the end of our question and answer session. And Greg, are you ready to take it away?
Yes, I think I have sound back. So thanks to all of the speakers for this session, including me. Great job, me, and Monty. More importantly, Monty and Rick. Thank you both. I consistently find your comments really insightful. So now we're going to switch gears just a little bit for our last big panel, the theme of which is going to be STEM music videos. So the next 3 speakers are all in some way or another going to talk about, you know, adding the video component onto the song.